You find yourself at a special crossroads with your game group. The most recent campaign has come to an end. Perhaps your players have already figured out all the best exploits and workarounds for the current game system. Maybe you've developed a couple of tells with that system that give away your plot too easily. Regardless, everyone has that feeling of excitement at the prospect of playing a different system. You walk into the local game store or bookstore and maybe even look online, and there it is, the system that you and your players will consider next. They've trusted you to give it a thorough look and provide everyone with a primer on how the system works and how characters are created. But as you browse the shelves, you find yourself confronted by a daunting choice. Core Rulebook or Starter Set? If you can only get one, which one should it be? I mentioned last video that I'm often skeptical of the value of starter sets, and thinking on it a bit I've found myself considering the question of their value from two directions. First is historic, how much you get from the kit versus the core rulebook. Second is one of rationale. I can't assume that the answer that works for my game group works for every game group. So I ran an inquiry on ttrpg subreddit to explore more answers. They were quite helpful. But let's get to the history first. TSR offered the first D&D introductory box set in 1977 for $9.50 US. The box came with a rulebook, an introductory adventure, and a catalog of TSR products. Believe me, before the internet, catalogs like that were essential browsing for any hobbyist. There were no dice since TSR hadn't yet pared down a consistent supplier, and weren't yet manufacturing their own. Instead, the game came with a sort of numbered and color-coded tokens that you could punch out, similar to a modern board game. To roll, you'd drop the appropriate set into a cup and draw one at random. This was tedious compared to dice, and the cardstock tokens would fray and wear out after a while. This would be replaced in 1981 with what was called the Magenta box set, which retailed for $9.95 US. This came with actual dice, but you had to use a crayon to fill in the numbers to keep them visible. After that came the Beckme set, Basic, Expert, Companion, Master, and Immortal, released from 1983 to 1986, the Easy to Master set in 1991, and the Classic Edition in 1994. Wizards of the Coast continued the tradition with a third edition with the release of the Adventure Game box set in 2000. This was quite possibly the best value for dollar starter set released for D&D. 16 miniatures, 4 double-sided dungeon tiles, a full set of dice, pre-gen characters printed in color, and a starter adventure and basic rules. All for $9.95 US, the same price as the Magenta box almost 20 years earlier. Since then, the price of most starter sets have gone up, and the amount of miniatures and unique features has gone down. And so the question now is, if you mostly get paper and cardstock material in a starter set, and only a fraction of the rules in the core rulebook, are starter sets actually competitive anymore? And so we come to the question of rationale. Replies to my inquiry on the ttrpg subreddit generally fell into one of 4 categories. Core rulebook only, core rulebook but, starter set if, and starter kit for sure. Let's break these down. The ttrpg subreddit leans towards more experienced players and GMs, so it isn't too surprising that a big chunk of the answers skew straight to the core rulebook. Off the bat, most experienced GMs simply do not want a condensed or truncated version of the rules. And this is especially true of the character creation rules, which came up in many replies. Part of the fun is creating your own characters and testing them against the new system. If this isn't the game group's first system, chances are they already have lots of physical or digital assets from previous systems that they don't need from a starter kit. Also, skilled GMs know enough about composing an adventure that they don't really need to use the included one, reducing its value. Lastly, if you're an avid gamer, your games take up space on your shelves, and a starter kit definitely takes up more space than a book. The next set of answers came from players who lean towards the core rulebook but would consider the starter kit under certain circumstances. Several mentioned that if a free quick start PDF were available online, they would definitely check it out before buying. So when cost is less of a factor, the starter gets more consideration. Some said they would go through a friend starter kit before buying if such an opportunity arose. One respondent mentioned considering the kit if the financial barrier of the core rulebooks were too high, as it sometimes tends to be with D&D. The 3rd edition starter game was only 1/6 the combined cost of the player's handbook, DM guide, and monster manual in 2000. Lastly, some might pick up the starter set if they are introducing the hobby itself to entirely new players. The third set of answers came from players who are more inclined towards the starter set under certain circumstances, and these answers were a real eye-opener for me. Off the bat, some GMs just wanted the included material, which often involve goodies that aren't available outside of the starter set, unique tiles or starter exclusive dice or miniatures. Some starter sets include a necessity for the game, like the narrative dice for Star Wars RPG. You can buy this dice separately, but in some circumstances a starter kit may be the only thing available. The starter set is also a good choice if a player wants to switch to the GM seat. Included game scenarios will give them an idea of what needs to be prepared in advance. Sometimes players are reluctant to get their own core rulebooks, but will pool their money to give the system a try. But one other answer I learned is that there are some companies that actually put a lot of effort into their starter kits, with Chaosium cited as one of the best ones. The Call of Cthulhu set from Chaosium comes with pre-gens, investigator handouts, dice, but also with character creation rules and 4 adventures instead of just 1. And including the character creation rules in the starter set really sets them apart from other publishers for many responders. Our last category is the straight to starter category, and there's some good rationales here too. One of the best ones I found is to buy the starter set as a gift for someone who is curious about it. They might include you in the game. Many game groups prefer an inexpensive test run, again pooling their money. The onboarding is simpler in many cases. Some GMs mention they enjoy collecting them. Some GMs have a crazy commitment to a system and simply have to get every product associated with it. And many players directed me to another company, Free League Publishing, whose starter kits are actually the full games, but with softback versions of the books to keep prices low. FLP also sells hardback versions for more committed players who want a quality printing, but the kit does have everything they need for full campaigns. I have to say I will probably stay a Core Rulebook GM. I'm a digital GM, so the additional bits from a starter kit that I can't pull into Foundry VTT just don't have much value for me. And if I know a starter set adventure, that means I can never enjoy it as a player if someone else decides to run it. But the recommendations for Chaosium and Free League Publishing definitely have me considering giving their options a try. What are your experiences with starter kits? Let me know in the comments and hit all the usual YouTube buttons if you would. Until next time, happy gaming and lights out in the basement.